I called you and I said, you're fucked. You remember? I said, Nathan, I'm calling you to tell you that you're fucked because now we have 4 weeks to do this.
Yeah, how I would describe myself most as a composer is a very slow composer. So I like to take my time. I come on really early, and this by far was the quickest I had ever done it.
Hello, I am Guillermo del Toro, and I'm here with my good friend and collaborator, Nathan Johnson. We're going to talk about composing the music of Nightmare Alley and other stuff for the process. Hey, Nathan, how are you, man?
Hey, Guillermo, nice to see you.
Nice to see you. So, listen, we didn't know each other a couple of months ago.
No,
we didn't. And it was, I want to set up the moment in which we met a little for the audience so they understand. Nathan is a brilliant composer who had done some of the most beautiful soundtracks. And we found ourselves through the pandemic, through a cut that changed the movie. We took out about 30 minutes. We had restructured the movie and we were in dire need to find a composer for it. The movie had the characteristic of talking to you and being very selective about the score that went in. And with this new cut, we wanted to find a composer that could do a full score in approximately 4 weeks, right? So I went into speed dating at a breakfast place in Los Angeles, and I met with composers. And the one thing that happened with the movie that was very revelatory, I said, well, I'm going to meet with Nathan Johnson, so let's try the piano piece from Knives Out over one scene in the movie. And immediately the movie just grabbed it. And the movie said, yep, I can do this. And it fit perfectly. And I said, well, let's try it in another 2 places to see if it lives. And the other 2 places, it lived perfectly. So Nathan and I met at breakfast. And I said, well, one of the things I said, I think you're already in trouble because we already have the temp track and it's yours and the movie likes it. So, but then we started talking and let's talk about that first encounter. How was it from your side? I paid the check, by the way. I paid the check.
Yes, you did. You bought me breakfast and I was like, well, if this guy's going to buy me breakfast, I want to work with him. No, I watched the movie the night before. You sent it to me completely dry, no music. And I was just taken aback because A, it was an amazing movie, but B, I was like, oh shit, I think Guillermo is making a movie about a main character who essentially doesn't change, which is so different from most Western storytelling, right? It's like about character arcs and it starts here and then it's some totally different person by the end. And that my all the neurons were firing because I felt like I understood what you were doing with this. And I think that's mostly what we talked about. I just talked about who I thought that character was and what I saw happening in the movie, and also just told you how much I loved your movie.
One last chance to witness this supreme oddity. I must ask you, however, to remember that this exhibit is being presented solely in the interest of science and education. Where did it come from? Is it a beast or is it a man? Come on in and find out. This creature has been examined by the foremost scientists of both Europe and the Americas and pronounced a man. Unequivocally, a man. He can go for weeks with neither food nor drink and live entirely on the atmosphere. But you're in luck because tonight we're going to feed him one last time. Peach? There will be a slight additional charge for this attraction, but it's not $1, not 50 cents, but a quarter. 1/4 of a dollar, and you will see him feed. Suckle on the blood of reptiles and birds. Like a babe feeding on its mother's milk.
We pack, basically the movie is a prologue, the entire movie a prologue for the last 2 minutes, and the character changes, or in fact reveals himself to himself in the last 2 minutes of the movie. And that is, as you say, structurally a very, very rare thing to do in American and Western narrative. But it was said that that's the only 2 possible arcs for a character. We talked also, what impressed me about our first meeting is that the first thing we talked about was character.
Yeah.
We talked about Lilith, we talked about Rooney, about Molly, we talked about each of the characters, what they meant to you when you first saw it. And you said something very beautiful, truthful. You said, look, the movie plays without any music. But I think I can make it play differently with the score. I can enhance things that are not being touched right now. Not that they wouldn't play well, but they could play differently and in a beautiful way. And I like that. I liked it that we were not talking about the score per se.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that morning we basically didn't talk about music at all. We were just talking about characters, which, you know, for me, I feel like when I watch a movie, the first time I never want to think about music. I just watch it as a fan. And I'm watching it as, do I love this movie? Am I excited about what this movie is saying? And there's plenty of time to think about music tomorrow, but for right now, I want to engage with the world that you're making. And I remember Katie, my wife, and I watched it, and she turned to me after we were done and she said, that's the best movie I've seen in quite a while. And also, we had, you know, a month to do the score. And I feel like if the movie wasn't solid at that point, there's no way you can score a movie that doesn't know what it wants to be in that short of a time period.
It was interesting, and we'll talk nuts and bolts and shop here a little. It was interesting as we were leaving. Almost at the end, we had another table of people that were very nice to start talking to us, and they said, "Oh, my son is learning how to film and become a director in a school in LA." And we talked, and then we were already leaving almost the table, and you said, "You know, I think Stan should be about 4 notes, and one of them should be dissonant." And that was about what we talked about, and that was the extent of the musical discussion. And then you left, and almost with a chronometer, I had other meetings, and I said, whoever sends the first piece of music is at the very least the most passionate. And sure enough, your email comes and says, look, I couldn't help it, but here's a piece. And what we did is exactly what we had done with Knives Out. We went and placed that piece, which was pretty open. It was Lilith, but it was very atmospheric. And we tried it in the exact same 4 spots that we had tried Knives Out. And it played exactly as good and exactly as profoundly. And it defined the identity of the movie immediately, that first piece. So I called you and I said, you're fucked. You remember? I said, Nathan, I'm calling you to tell you that you're fucked because now we have 4 weeks to do this.
Yeah, how I would describe myself most as a composer is a very slow composer. So I like to take my time. I come on really early, and this by far was the quickest I had ever done it. But it was amazing. You came over every week. We would sit together in my studio, and it was amazing.
And as we accelerated, we started meeting 2-3 times a week because of the beautiful Starbucks sous vide eggs that we would order early in the morning.
Yep, you would get there. We'd order some egg bites and just dive in. One of the things that I love, Guillermo, and you at the beginning, you were, you know, we obviously hadn't worked together and didn't really know each other. And you said, I trust your instincts. I want you to bring your voice to the table. And that was such a, you know, an honor, but it was such an amazing thing to be welcomed into your process and not being, you know, not talking about reference tracks, not talking about other noir. It's like, this is the movie we're making. And I felt like you invited me to respond to the characters and the atmosphere. And then you would come over every week and I would play you what we had written, and you would just say, oh, I love that, but what if we put that on the cello? Or, you know, we kind of just like refine. And that was such a rich process to get to be in the same room finally after the pandemic.
We did, and not only on this process, but in so much of the movie's post-production, we did so much on Zoom and by email, sending a tune and then typing on the email. And it was so, I knew that if we were going to hit that spot 4 weeks later, we had to be face to face and have 6, 7, 8 hour sessions. If we were not in the same room, we wouldn't be able to have that chemistry where we said, what about a rhythm there? You know, and then you could change it immediately. But what I love also is what you said is we were not, first of all, we were not referencing the genre.
Yeah.
We were not saying, oh, this is a noir score or nothing. We were trying to reflect truth and character, you know?
Exactly.
And the way, and I said early on, because I meant it, I said, I don't want to tell you how I listen to the movie. I want you to tell me how you would describe it with your music. And I think almost, I think every piece landed almost first, second, third try. And then we started to screw with them, but they landed.
Yeah, no, it felt like, I mean, this movie really felt like it was telling us what it wanted, right? And,
It did.
And it I mean, that you were talking about Lilith's Room, that piece that I wrote after we had breakfast and sent over, and that is in the final movie almost verbatim, almost exactly the way that I wrote that original sketch. And it just, the clarity and the, you know, the focus that we were able to, you know, it wasn't a lot of back and forth. It was like, we're on this train, we all are making the same movie.
Yeah.
And that's like, you know, as a collaborator, to get to come in and work with you that way, that's the biggest gift, is to not be changing the thing we're making. We were going towards the focus.
The same. No, but one thing we discussed the other day, you and I, after the premiere, we said, you know what? It was great that it was 4 weeks.
Yeah.
And not 4 months, and not 4 days, and not any other form, because that was exactly the measure to make this score exactly the way it is. We didn't overthought it. We didn't underthought it. We didn't, and yet, and I'll say this, we started knowing one thing. You said, I want to open with those 4 notes, and the last thing you hear are going to be those 4 notes, meaning he starts alone and he will end up alone. And the movie, we tried things for the finale. We said it should be in silence.
Yeah.
It was written to be in silence. Well, let's try it. And the movie clearly said, nope, it's going to be in silence, not a single note.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It wouldn't allow it.
Totally. And that was like, that, I feel like what you're doing in this movie is bold filmmaking. That's what I got excited about that night. You're doing something bold, you're making a statement. And so we got to start sparsely, and with the score, we build it up really big, and then we stripped it all down to the camp, and he holds up his watch, and you hear that last note, and then we let the last scene play totally quiet.
Well, got him hooked real good. Despite all that. He's got quite an operation.
And he's gonna call back.
Oh yeah, he's gonna call back. I left real money on the table. Gotta leave money to get money. You're gonna have to give me some real information on him now.
No, not me.
I figured.
I'm the only one who could have given you that information. If your foot slips, we both fall.
We have, but there's a couple of things I would like to share with whoever is watching this. Is one of the things I loved and I felt privileged to try is that we define the scale of the score changing. We start with 4 notes, 5 notes, whatever it is, and then we start an orchestration that is fairly spare, except for the dismantling the 10th piece, which is a little larger, but the rest is rather a small orchestra. And then when Lilith comes into the picture in the city, the oboe and the horns and the trumpet, they come in, and all of a sudden we start growing more grand or more lush, right? And then in the heist at the end, when he checks the lock and moves away, now we have the trumpet playing Lilith's theme, and now we're in full score, and then we descend again to just the 4 notes. That was very thrilling for me.
Oh, well, it was so fun to, I think the thing that's so cool about all of this is we got to make a movie where we weren't trying to impose an idea for the score from the outside. It was all coming out of what is the character telling us. And that idea, the whole idea for the score is because of the characters, because of the story. It's not like we're trying to impose a concept on it. The concept itself comes from the movie and the story that you're creating, and that these characters that the actors are bringing to life.
Yeah, and this movie, listen, the movie is the longest post in a way. I shot through all the festival season, finishing the movie. I was editing, I was doing this, I was doing that. I was doing color correction 3.5 weeks ago, and you left to record in London, and I was doing color correction and doing VFX and all that. We just finished it basically. But I will tell the story of this. We did the score. We were both very almost prudish about how much music we put in, but putting music in dictates a rhythm. And then I saw the movie beginning to end with the score. We had said that's enough. And then I called you. I called you from the car. You were leaving the next morning, right? And I say, hey, listen, we're going to need a couple more cues. And you said, well, that's not a problem. We can do it in the editing. You said, how many? I said, 10.
10.
I said 10, and you went, oh. I said, how do we do it? I said, I'm on my way. And you said, I'm on my way too to your apartment. And we both got in the apartment, and we stayed there until like midnight that day.
That was your birthday. You stayed.
Yeah.
The next day was I think you had to get home for a birthday dinner. I was like getting my COVID test, and you're like, I'm on my way to your house. I'm like, I'm not even there. You're like, we gotta do.
And we were exactly the same distance. I arrived, and what we did is we went into the discard file, and then we went into the theme file, and we composed you composed maybe a couple new ones, and we then edited, and exchange, and we knew that the one thing we knew then is that each of the music cues had an identity.
Yeah.
We knew who Lilith was,
Yeah.
and it was oboe and horns. We knew Stan was piano. We knew that, we had the whole know-how, and we could access a melody from here and this and that. And I've never had that. Have you ever had that?
No, I mean,
experience?
no. And no, I've never written 10 cues the day before we flew to London to orchestra. I've never had that experience. No, but what's amazing, you're right, because every theme is a character theme in this movie, 4 main character themes. And we knew it's like, yes, we can bring in Stan's theme here, we can bring in Lilith's theme here. I remember you said to me, we're in Toronto, I think, and you said, character is king, but rhythm is queen. And it's just like that element of like, once you introduce something, then you are introducing a rhythm, and it's so important that we play this rhythm in the way that the movie wants.
Yeah, once you hear the music, then you internally, like your circadian rhythm, start saying, "Oh, I need music here," or "What is it gonna be now?" And it's not that it's descriptive; it's that is literally part of the identity. Yeah, you feel it. It's as if you were going into a scene with no actors after a little bit. Oh, I see the set, but where are the actors, right? Or no light. It's an element that is now completely fused. I love that. And then I think it's interesting to talk about the final negotiation, which for the storyteller is the editing room, for the musician is the mixing board. And we went into the mixing board with all these things, all this richness. And then you decide, okay, let's delay this, let's lower the horns. One of the things I was very thankful to you was how you created layers that we could then throw to the surrounds to clear the center for dialogue or effects. And then we had horns over here. One moment, I'm going to interrupt myself for this. One moment that I thought was beautiful, and you may remember this, is when we said, when the car is going to the Grindle factory, and I say, let's put Lilith's theme here so that we know that even if we don't know it, she's behind this.
Yeah.
It's not a new theme for a new character, it's her theme. She's behind the whole Grindle plot, and we tried and it worked.
Yeah, and she's pulling the strings. And I remember another time when Lilith reveals her scars, and so to give some context, you said for Molly, you said, don't give me a love theme, but you got to break my heart. And so
we talk about hope.
Yeah, exactly.
Hope for the future, we called it.
Yeah, exactly. And so that I feel like is the most guileless theme. It's a hopeful theme, but Stan steals that. And I remember you were over one time at the studio, and we were scoring the scene where Lilith opens her jacket and reveals her scar. And I said, Guillermo, I feel like we want to essentially steal Molly's theme here. Stan is stealing the affection that he has for Molly, and he's turning. And so at that moment, Lilith's theme becomes Molly's theme just for a second. And it also, the way that Xena at the beginning, her theme as she's doing her trick, Stan steals that, and then that becomes the spook show. So it's so rewarding to have such defined characters and themes where we can play around with the underbelly and the impressionism.
But you said something that made it make sense. You said it's not just Molly's theme. You said Stan sees all women the same. At the end of the day, when he clicks with all women, no matter if it's Molly or Xena or it's gonna be Lilith. That is sort of Stan, the need of Stan, rather than anything else, and that made sense to me. Now, going back to the mixing board, what was really interesting for me is that we had those layers, but ultimately it's a waltz between effects and music
Yeah.
that you have to, and you have a really be refreshingly beautiful, egoless attitude about who leads, because somebody needs to lead in that waltz.
Yeah.
Is it going to be effects or music? How do you normally approach the mix, and what does it mean for you at that stage in the process?
It's really important. So the way that I think about it is that I really, in my mind, this is not my chance to write my opus. What I'm doing here is I'm trying to be the servant to your vision, and I trust that you're being the servant to the story.
Yes.
And so because of that, I feel like it's never about turn up the music. That when we come to and I think that's something that mixers, they can sometimes be afraid if the composer is going to come on the sound stage, it's just going to be like, turn up the music. But to me, it's not about, is the music louder or quieter because of the music? It's about, what does the story want? And if we need to hear, if the sound effects need to take the lead here, that means the music needs to chill out. And it's ideally, if we're a team, which I feel with that's what our collaborators are, right? It's the production design, it's the costumes, it's the set, and the actors.
It's all one thing.
It's all
a
one
single
thing.
thing.
Yeah. So that, I think that's sort of a long-winded answer of saying, like, I'm excited at that stage because I feel like we all are trying to make the same movie and go for the same goal.
But I remember us having said very clearly, look, we're leaving with this number of cues to London. We're going to record all of them. And then
Yeah.
some of them are just going to go away.
Yeah.
And we will not know until we're mixing the final movie. And there was a very, very clear moment in which the rhythm of David Strathern's speech, where he talks to Stan about how you read a person.
Yeah.
And we put the music, and immediately you stopped paying attention to the speech. And we said, you know what? And we knew it. We had done, it's out. And it was a fully composed, fully orchestrated, fully recorded, beautifully rendered piece of music, and goes out the window because the real rhythm and the real music is the dialogue in that scene. And I thought that was really, really interesting. Anyway, Nathan, thank you very much for being here on the process. That's Nathan Johnson. I'm Guillermo del Toro, and we say, c'est la vie. Au revoir.
Bye-bye.